that they have an absolute right, or do you just leave that to them to work out in accordance with Galatians, forgive me if I'm pronouncing incorrectly?
I'm just not sure that, again, I'm happy to answer the question again, but I think
I'll withdraw it, I'm sorry. Galatians says, doesn't it, that basically one must bear one's own load. Is that correct?
Well, and again, I explained that has nothing to do with not telling the individual that they have every right to go to the police. That has everything to do, as I've mentioned.
What is church policy, if I might inquire?
Would I be permitted just to finish that sentence? If not,
I don't want to waste your time, or indeed that of the Commission. If I might clarify my question, it could be that I'm just wanting to know what the church policy is now.
I'm happy to repeat it again.
Right.
In every allegation of child abuse, I'd open it and read it again, but I think the Commissioner might get frustrated with me, but in every allegation of child abuse, the elders are informed, reminded, as they've got written there, to make sure that the survivor or victim's family are told that they have the absolute right to deal with it with the authorities, and that the elders will support them in that. So we have repeatedly said that.
And so certainly, and that's at a time when the elders may indeed have established to their own satisfaction that they believe the allegation.
Look, again, for the sake of the Commission, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but the Chapter 12 of the Elders' Handbook, if you recall, specifically says at the time they first hear of the allegation. So there may be no evidence, it may be hearsay. The first thing that they do is contact the branch office, and they are given that advice, and the elders relay that advice.
Well, and are you aware, and His Honour touched upon this, as to knowledge and belief, if some knowledge and or belief as to whether or not a crime has been committed. Are you aware of the gravity of the criminal sanction if one has a knowledge or a belief about a crime having been committed and one doesn't go to the authorities? And I'm talking about the elders.
I think the Commissioner, His Honour, did an outstanding job of making it very clear to me, and I've acknowledged the fact that while that's a relatively new understanding to me, I don't claim to understand the law. What I've recognised and humbly accepted is that every individual in New South Wales, and that's something that's going to face elders and our branch office more than every individual, that there is a law there that has a bearing, and I understand that.
Yes, right. Thank you, Your Honour.
Did you hear the evidence of Mr Davies? Queensland,
I did most of it, Your Honour, yes. So.
Did you hear his concerns about your processes and the risk to prosecution?
I did. I heard what he said, yes.
Yeah. If someone's accused of a crime, maybe sexual abuse or indeed any other crime, which comes before the elders, that accusation comes before the elders, is the person accused required to answer to the elders?
The elders would never, I may have dismissed the first part, but the elders would never, or the policy or procedure is that they would always follow up an allegation.
I understand that, but is the accused required to answer to the elders, answer their questions?
I would say in the congregation setting the answer is yes. Then if the individual failed to do that, it would be difficult for me to understand how we would continue in the congregation, or that the parents or victim wouldn't be encouraged to deal with the matter through another course.
So in order to, as it were, protect him or herself within the setting of the church, the person would be required to answer the questions of the elders, is that right?
I think the clear Proverbs 28 verse 13 says, confess your sins. Is there a scriptural obligation for them to confess their sins? Yes, there is. Could they refuse to do that? I guess the answer would be yes.
What about not confessing your sins but articulating your defence? Would you have to do that?
The accused?
Yeah.
Yes, if there was an allegation against an individual and he refused to answer that allegation, the individual would be disfellowshipped from the congregation ultimately, because again, as the charge of brazen loose conduct is an absolute disregard for the authority and standards, so he would be disfellowshipped if he refused.
Well, it's probably murky territory for you, but do you understand where we've stepped into now in terms of the conflict or potential conflict between your processes and the civil law?
Yeah, I do understand the reasoning and I'm appreciative of it. I acknowledge what you're saying.
What's the answer?
I think we're looking forward to the recommendations of the Commission. We're favourable to mandatory reporting and we're favourable to documenting and addressing our policies wherever we can. That's a pretty sweeping statement, but as I said, we are motivated to do what we can within the scriptures to make sure that we make whatever changes are needed, Your Honour.
Well, you gentlemen will be able to help us on that question too.
Yes, Your Honour.
Mr. Tockley.
Yes, Your Honour. Your Honour, I just have one topic I wish to have some re-examination upon. I'll only be a couple of minutes, I think. Mr. Spinks, my name is Mr. Tockley, as you know. I represent the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia, as well as 3 other persons, including yourself, before this commission. Mr. Spinks, you gave some evidence earlier today about persons who are members of the Jehovah's Witnesses faith, including psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists and welfare workers. Do you remember that answer?
Yes.
Are policemen and women also members of the Jehovah's Witnesses faith?
Yes, there are Jehovah's Witnesses in all various aspects of the police force, yes.
And do you in the Service Department deal with members of the police force as part of your work?
Yes, we have a good rapport with the police for matters in both directions. Without digressing, we've had extensive dealings with the police in regard to the murder of the High Court judges and the bombing of the Kingdom Hall. So up till 8 o'clock this morning, we have a good relationship with the police force. I had a meeting earlier this morning.
And I take it there is no policy or scriptural reference which requires that the Service Department or indeed any other Jehovah Witness not cooperate with the police?
It's exactly the opposite. If I can just be permitted just for one moment to show, because I feel that it's not been clear. It's been referred to, but...
Does Your Honour have any objection to Mr. Spinks referring to the... I take it's the Bible you're referring to?
Yeah, just a verse from the Bible if
We're about to embark upon a complicated question, but go ahead.
I'll make it brief.
You'll run into the problem of if the law is a problem and the police are trying to enforce a law that's a problem for Jehovah's Witness. That's the problem you'll run into.
I think this says the opposite, Your Honour, if I could be permitted to read it. But
yes, but you said what I just said before lunch, but anyway.
Romans chapter 13, if I could just be indulged just to read the verses, because this is our absolute conviction. It says, "Let every person be in subjection to the superior authorities, for there is no authority except by God. The existing authorities stand placed in their relative positions by God. Therefore, whoever opposes the authority has taken a stand against the arrangement of God. Those who have taken a stand against it will bring judgment against themselves." Verse 4 says, "For it is God's minister to you for your good. But if you're doing what is bad, be in fear, for it's not without purpose that it bears the sword. It is God's minister, an avenger to express wrath against the one practising what is bad." So Jehovah's Witnesses have absolute regard for the law in these areas. We want to be law-abiding. If, as has been raised, if there are areas of our processes that are not in harmony with the law in this matter, we will change them. We will make the adjustment. We'll continue to cooperate with the police. We love the police. We want to cooperate with the police. And if there are laws that require us, we will change our arrangements to conform to support the police.
Mr. Spinks, it's a complicated question. Before lunch, you rightly pointed out that the Jehovah's Witnesses did not comply with the Nazi obligations, and that's occurred or occurring throughout the world. You can't literally apply that Bible passage to all circumstances, can you?
I read before Acts 5:29 that talks about obey God as ruler rather than men. If a government, as the Nazis did or as South Korea does, says that I have to go and kill people, then I'll default to God's law and I'll go to prison for the consequences. When the Australian law says you report every case of child abuse regardless of the wishes of the victim, Jehovah's Witnesses will fully comply with it. There is no question about us obeying the law.
I understand that, but you have to make a judgment is the point, don't you? You have to, as a Jehovah's Witness, you have to make a judgment.
Not with regard to the law in relation to things that don't conflict with Bible principles, because reporting child abuse at any level does not conflict with Bible principles, and we would happily comply.
I take it from what you've said in answer to Zonda's questions that you draw the distinction between those legal requirements of a government which are regarded as being in conflict with the scriptures, which you will not observe, and that's why you gave the examples of Nazi Germany and Korea, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And those legal requirements which are in harmony with the scriptures, which Jehovah's Witnesses will comply with.
Absolutely.
And that's the distinction that you seek to draw.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, and I have no questions. No more questions.
Your Honour, I did have a question, but I note the time.
No, you ask your question.
Thank you, Your Honour. Well, I had three, but I'll try to limit it, given the time. For the record, my name is Ms David, and I represent BCG. It's on this point of cooperation. This is with the other counsellors, psychologists and persons who would assist victims. I just want to be clear that it is not just in circumstances when the victim or the parents of the victim raise that they want to go to the authorities that you will advise them that it's their right to do so. Is it the case that you positively tell them that there are a variety of options and authorities that they may wish to speak to? Do you positively counsel them in that regard?
Well, again, I can't speak in the absolute, but my understanding would be that in every case we positively go to the parents and say, if you choose to, you'll have our full support. Do we go and say you must go to the police? We don't do that.
No. Well, I'm really asking you for somewhere in between there. It just concerns me with respect to some of the language you've used, that you would cooperate, you will, you respect their right if that's what they want to do. Do you tell them that that is an option that is available to them?
In every situation, to my knowledge, we do.
Right. And that is what you counsel the elders?
That's correct.
Right. And that is a new practice?
Why do you say that?
Well, I represent BCG.
Oh, so did the elders do that 24 years?
No, in fact, she has made a statement that she was instructed to the contrary when she raised it some years later with the elders, that she was in fact advised that she would be defellowshipped if she did, and other matters. But I guess what I'm concerned is that victims and their parents or guardians are aware not only that they have that right, but of persons who they might go to.
I think I've answered that question. Did that happen 24 years ago? I have no intention of disrespecting BCG's recollection.
Yeah. And just if I could seek the Commissioner's indulgence for a minute, just in relation to the issue of support, because what concerns me that in your statement, I'm not going to go to each paragraph, but on a number of occasions you have said that you take steps, you advise the elders to protect and support the victim. Again, I come back to BCG, but it is plainly clear from her statement that she did not feel supported and she did not feel protected. through that process. Do you agree with that from having heard her evidence?
Do I agree that was what her evidence was? Absolutely,
Yes.
I heard it, yes.
And you heard from the elders that they believe that they gave her support.
I heard that too.
Well, there's a clear disconnect there, isn't there?
There's two different recollections.
Well, no. What I want to suggest to you, it's not a different in recollection. There is a clear disconnect, because while a well-meaning elder might believe that he has provided support, what it really highlights is that they are completely inexperienced and unable to provide the sort of support that a victim of child abuse needs. Doesn't that what that indicates? Isn't that what that indicates?
I think that's the longest question I've heard all day, but I think what
Right.
sorry if I can, I think what you're saying is if I had the power to be able to go back 24, 25 years,
No.
I think...
No, Mr Spinks.
No, sorry.
No. What's being put to you is that this is not a question of recollection.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that the report from the survivor as to the way she felt, which is her own
Yes.
truthful account, is something which the elders obviously did not understand or appreciate. And that may be because of the limitations that old men, like me,
And me.
might have in dealing with intimate allegations from a young woman about what has happened to them.
Yeah.
Do you understand the point?
I do, and I accept that.
Well, accepting it's one thing, but then what's built into your process, if you accept it, is the risk in every case, when we're talking about abuse of this nature, that the survivor will feel unsupported and indeed may well be traumatised by the process. You understand?
I do.
And that's a very serious position for the Jehovah's Witness to be in, and a matter of concern to the Commission. Do you understand?
I do understand.
And that the case of BCG highlights that there are gross inadequacies in the way that the Jehovah's Witness congregation deal with these matters, notwithstanding their good intentions. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that they are clearly, from BCG's point of view, as an example, I'm sure representing many other victims, that change needs to occur to ensure that there is a comprehensive regime in place to look out for her, not that the elders don't have that capacity. Do you agree with that?
Again, it was such a long question, but if I understand the criticism, and I think, again, I would say I do understand what you're saying.
And that there needs to be, that is an area that you need to look at seriously within your processes, and to ensure that you can properly support and protect a victim such as BCG.
And continually do so, continually reevaluate and accept those observations.
And to accept those observations, precisely.
Yep.
Yes.
I agree.
Thank you.
Your Honour, there is one matter I should put to Mr Spinks briefly. Mr Spinks, it's just in relation to your evidence in the last short while where you said that elders are informed to make sure that the survivor or victim's family are told that they have the absolute right to deal with it with the authorities. And if I can take you to your Shepherd the Flock handbook, that's tab 120 at page 131. And you explained earlier that this is looking at paragraphs 18 and 19. From here is what you explain, the generic advice you give, and it's based on what's written here. And you'll see in paragraph 19, just below the bold, it says, if you are asked, make it clear whether to report the matter to the authorities or not as a personal decision. And I suggest to you that that's where the truth lies. The truth, in fact, is that you tell your elders, if you are asked, make it clear that whether to report the matter to the authorities or not is a personal decision, and that it's not something that you tell them in every case, not something that the elders are instructed to tell the families in every case, that it's their absolute right to deal with the authorities. Do you accept that?
No.
Is that another document that needs to change then?
Yes, I think earlier, if I can, I recounted under oath what we do and what we say, and have acknowledged that we certainly need to put these references together and document what is actually done, and I apologise that that's not the case.
Very well, thank you for your evidence. You're excused. And we'll adjourn until 10 in the morning.
Yeah, Dr. Jason Morrison, theologist again. I just want to say thank you for watching the videos, and I hope you got plenty of self-rediscovery and freedom out of it. If you watched it on YouTube, please share or like, maybe even comment. If you watched it on Facebook, like, comment, share. But most of all, get out and live. This isn't a rehearsal. You've got a one-off life. Don't let your loyalty and your faithfulness blind you to the life that you should be experiencing. Till the next video, thank you for watching, and bye for now.